Goodness, I need to call an ambulance. In front of me, Thomas's wife Mary collapsed from her chair. Bending over halfway, she began to cry out in pain. I reached for my mobile phone. Granny, you don't need to call. My granddaughter Jennifer stopped me from reaching for my phone, and I was shocked to hear why. She knew all about the unbelievable plan. My name is Susan. I'm a 54-year-old web designer. My husband David has been working in the French branch of a major trading company for 9 years. He returns to the country for emergencies and important occasions, but generally he doesn't come back. We both love our jobs, so I have no complaints about David. My work, simply put, can be done anywhere with a computer. I considered going to France with David, but there was a reason I didn't. Around the time David's assignment in France was confirmed, Thomas and his wife were expecting a child. We've been living with Thomas and his wife since they got married. Mary's family home is far, and her brother and his wife are living there. It seemed difficult for her to return home for childbirth, as her sister-in-law was also expecting at the same time. This child would be my first grandchild. Having me, who works from home, will be reassuring for Mary during her first childbirth, I thought. David agreed with my decision to stay in America. After graduating from vocational school, Thomas works at a local car repair shop. Mary took a short break from her part-time job before and after giving birth, but returned to work quickly. She now works part-time at a nearby cafe. I still remember what Mary said to me right after they moved in. "You work from home, so you'll take care of the housework," she said with a smile. Indeed, I work from home, but I'm not that free. Even though Mary works part-time, she only works half a day in the morning or afternoon. She clearly has more time for household chores. But Mary completely abandoned her housework duties as if it was natural. Eventually, the household chores were divided between David and me, just like before Thomas and his wife moved in. With more people living together, household chores obviously doubled. Thomas and his wife, acting like guests, didn't do any housework. We were left scrambling and struggling with the doubled housework, busier than our previous life. Now I handle all the housework alone. I was truly happy when my first granddaughter Jennifer was born. David had to go abroad for work immediately, so he was a bit sad, but it couldn't be helped. Jennifer was very cute from when she was a baby. She's now 9 years old. A 9-year-old girl with her mature speech and behavior is such an adorable age. Jennifer has grown into a girl who speaks and acts maturely. However, Mary seemed uninterested in Jennifer from when she was a baby. Originally, "I'm not good with kids," Mary would say, and I worried about leaving her in charge of childcare. Eventually I, working from home, ended up taking care of Jennifer. Mary probably changed Jennifer's diapers the least. She would only dote on Jennifer when she felt like it, neglecting other care. It was a selective approach to parenting. I think Jennifer was about 3 years old at the time. I was incredibly busy with work then. It was what you call a peak season. For me, a freelancer, delaying deadlines was fatal. I managed my work while staggering with housework and childcare. But such overexertion couldn't last, and then one day I collapsed from overwork. Lying listlessly on the living room sofa, I was shocked by what Mary said when she returned from her part-time job. "Susan, please go pick up the child from the childcare center. This is no time to be lazing around. You haven't even finished the laundry. I can't believe you're lying down without doing any housework." At that time, I apparently looked pale and turned ashen. Just 5 minutes after Mary got home, Thomas arrived and, seeing my pale face, hurriedly called the hospital. I'll never forget the words Mary said to me, looking so unwell. Reluctantly, after Thomas told her, Mary went to pick up Jennifer, and I'll never forget how she clicked her tongue at me. Taken to the hospital by Thomas, I was diagnosed with exhaustion and spent the night there. Thomas insisted on my hospitalization, knowing I'd have to return to household chores at home and wouldn't be able to rest. That night, I finally got some much-needed rest. I think I was truly exhausted. Although I recovered, I missed the deadlines for several jobs. Frustrated, I started focusing more on my work. I made it clear to Mary. I want us to share the household chores. Probably because Thomas was listening, Mary unusually agreed. Okay. However, Mary's words never turned into action. She helped a bit with the chores, but the basic role of running the household remained mine. I remind myself that not everything improves at once. Otherwise, I feel like getting angry at Mary. Living with Thomas and his wife has become like a test of my patience. I realized as Jennifer grew older that Mary is quite vain. Before Parents' Day, she always buys new clothes. I'd understand if it were for Jennifer, but Mary only buys for herself. Jennifer, now at an age wanting to dress up, is left with hand-me-downs or thrift shop clothes. Jennifer is always dressed in things she buys at thrift stores or hand-me-downs from her cousins. Mary seems to deceive Thomas about her spending. Showing him Jennifer's thrift shop clothes, she'd say, "It was cheap." Then, with her newly bought clothes after that, "I bought this too." She'd act as if they were bargains from the thrift shop too. She's quite cunning. Not wanting to interfere too much, I never commented on this. All I can do is buy new clothes with Jennifer every season. Seeing Jennifer's happy face became my joy. I believe a bond stronger than just grandmother and granddaughter formed between us. Don't spoil Jennifer too much, Susan. Buying her too many things isn't good for her upbringing. If you're buying for Jennifer, buy for me instead. Mary, waiting for me and Jennifer after we returned from clothes shopping, said this irritably. Jennifer shrank back, hiding behind me. Mary, you buy enough for yourself. And about spoiling, I'm just replacing clothes that have become too small for her. I was astounded by Mary's terrible attitude. Lately, I've been feeling that Mary's spending has gotten more reckless. Probably to compete with her mom friends who wear brand names. Friends married to doctors or company CEOs. I understand wanting to keep up appearances, but living within one's means is important. I've been quiet, but Mary, aren't you spending too much lately? You have your social life, but you need to save more. With Thomas's salary, you know Jennifer's education will cost more, right? Today, I reached my limit. I felt sorry for Jennifer, who thought she was being scolded. A girl her age should be able to enjoy fashion. But Mary, always putting herself first, seems to lack the awareness of a mom. Mary, you're a mom, right? Be a role model for Jennifer. Mary, hearing my words, seemed to be filled with anger. Her face turned red instantly. She wanted to retort, but seemed unable to find the words, clenching her jaw. I wished she would reflect on her lifestyle. But then, things started moving in an alarming direction. Mom, are you feeling okay? You look pale. Are you overworking again? You're not young anymore. Be careful. Thomas asked me this at the breakfast table. Recently, for the first time in years, I've been able to sit and eat. Since I spoke to Mary about the chores, she started doing them willingly. She's still not touching laundry or cleaning much, but seems to have decided to handle meals. Lately, she's been preparing all meals, from breakfast to dinner. Really, my work hasn't increased, and Mary's been helping with chores. So I should be feeling easier than before, but I feel sluggish. Maybe it's my age. My condition has been strangely poor lately. In the morning, it takes time to get up, feeling heavy. I get dizzy with slight movement, and my head feels constantly foggy. It feels different from when I collapsed from overwork. Are you okay? I'll make something easy to digest for lunch. Mary said with a cheerful voice, looking down at me holding my aching head. Her words were kind, but there was no sign of genuine concern. It almost seemed like she was enjoying my suffering. I felt embarrassed thinking that way. Blaming others for my ill health felt shameful. Mary had changed her heart and was trying hard. I need to respond in kind. Thank you. Your cooking is careful and tasty. I'm looking forward to lunch. I managed to smile saying that. However, Mary's cooking is a bit peculiar in taste. I always say, It's delicious. But frankly, it's not good. Thomas and Jennifer eat it normally, so maybe my taste is off. After all, it's unlikely that Jennifer, a child, would say something unpalatable is delicious. I wondered if my worsening health was to blame for my condition. After lunch, feeling increasingly unwell, I had to stop working and rest in my room. I was so dizzy I couldn't walk straight, making it difficult to go to the hospital. Could I be harboring some serious illness? The thought left me restless and unable to sleep. Susan, are you okay? I thought maybe something warm might make you feel a bit better. While resting, Mary brought me hot milk. Mary, who previously never showed such care, seemed genuinely repentant. I regretted not speaking up sooner. The mug emitted a gentle steam. I added a bit of sugar and vanilla to make it more palatable, she said. The scent was indeed sweeter than regular hot milk. Thank you, I'll have some. Mary watched intently as I finished the hot milk, as if observing me drink it all, which made me feel slightly uneasy. The milk was sweet and tasty, but there was a strange, bitter aftertaste. Thank you for the meal. It was delicious. Thank you, Mary, I said as I handed her the empty mug. Then I noticed something grainy at the bottom of the mug. When I looked closer, Mary, realizing this, hastily hid the mug behind her. Well, then please rest up. I'll think of something easy for dinner. You need to eat well to recover your strength, she said encouragingly and left the room. I felt my dizziness worsen and gently closed my eyes. It felt like the ceiling was spinning, even with my eyes closed. I was anxious about when my health would return to normal. I planned to go to the hospital by taxi the next day. Grandma, are you okay? The next time I woke up, it was already evening. Jennifer, who had returned from school, was looking at me with concern. Ah, Jennifer, welcome back. Was school fun today? I asked. Yeah, she nodded happily. Just as she was about to speak, the door opened and Mary appeared. Jennifer looked at the floor, swallowing her words, appearing to be frightened of Mary. Dinner will be ready soon. You have to eat, even if you're not feeling well. Mary urged me toward the dining table. Right, I replied, getting up. At that moment, Jennifer tightly gripped my hand, seeming to want to say something, but unable to with Mary there. Mary seemed aware of this, but made no move to leave. Reluctantly, I led the way to the dining room where a delicious meal was prepared. We have a menu that looks delicious tonight. Eating felt like a chore. It wasn't Mary's fault. My taste just seemed a bit off. Please, eat plenty. As she said this, she offered me some pot roast. The meat and vegetables were cooked together, and it looked perfect. I started eating, thinking it must be delicious. And to my surprise, it was indeed delicious. Mary, this is really good. Feeling happy with the taste I hadn't experienced in a while, I reached for other dishes. Each one tasted wonderful, and I was relieved to feel my sense of taste had returned. I happily turned to Jennifer and said, It's delicious, isn't it? Jennifer looked somewhat tense, as I wondered what was wrong, and was about to ask if something happened. Mary suddenly fell off her chair. Mary, what's wrong? Are you okay? Mary started groaning, curled up on the floor. Sweat was beading on her forehead. It's serious. I'll call an ambulance. Shocked at Mary's suffering, I reached for my mobile phone. Jennifer quickly stopped my hand. Grandma, no need to call. Jennifer said this with a serious look. Mary was in pain. Yet she said there was no need for an ambulance. Huh? Confused, a silly response slipped out of my mouth. Because Mom did something bad. She put something strange in your food. I switched them. My mom's dish and yours, Grandma. Jennifer said this tearfully with urgency. Startled, I placed a little of Mary's dish on my tongue. It was unbelievably bad, and even a little bit made my tongue numb. I quickly realized something was wrong, but I couldn't just leave Mary suffering. Jennifer, thank you. You saved me. Let's get Mom to the hospital anyway. We'll talk later. Saying this, Jennifer nodded and handed me my mobile phone. The ambulance arrived quickly, and Mary was taken to the hospital. Watching Mary in pain in the ambulance, I felt fear, thinking I would have been in her place if Jennifer hadn't acted. I felt nothing but gratitude for Jennifer. Mary, who received stomach pumping and IV at the hospital, seemed a bit better. According to the doctor, some kind of medication had been mixed into the dinner. It seems it's not a problem in small amounts, but dangerous when combined or taken in large quantities. This time, traces of a drug that should never be taken together were found. I also mentioned my prolonged poor health. "Let's do a blood test," said the doctor, writing an order for the test immediately. The test results were shockingly bad, indicating long-term consumption of the medication found in Mary's stomach. I see, I thought. I realized then my sense of taste was normal. I don't know what medication it was, but apparently Mary had been adding it to my food for some time. Probably my health deteriorated slower than Mary anticipated. Today, a large amount was added, along with a harmful combination. Perhaps she intended to finish it today. In any case, it's a terrifying situation. After receiving the news from the hospital, Thomas rushed over and I told him everything. Since I couldn't explain the medication well, I asked the doctor to do so. Thomas seemed quite shocked by Mary's actions. He probably didn't want to believe that his wife was trying to harm me. As Thomas stood dazed in the hallway, Jennifer approached him and said in a childlike voice, "Dad, it's not your fault." Thomas hugged her and said with tears in his voice, "I'm sorry." I thought he was apologizing for the past and for what was to come. I thought he was saying I'm sorry for what happened so far, and I'm sorry for what will happen next. The next morning, after getting a bit better from the IV, I was able to talk to Mary. When I stood by her bedside, Mary glared at me. "You don't seem to think it's your fault, judging by that attitude." I sighed, dismayed by Mary's attitude. "Why are you still so lively? Isn't your body a bit too sturdy?" Mary spat out those words, even while lying in bed. "What bothered you so much? Was I in your way? Well, don't worry. By the time you are discharged, we won't see each other again." At my words, Mary's voice trembled as she asked, "What do you mean?" "I brought this from Thomas. He said he doesn't want to see your face anymore." I said this as I unfolded the divorce papers in front of Mary. It was a divorce application already signed by Thomas. Mary looked at it in shock, her eyes wide open. Probably she never thought Thomas would suggest divorce. Thomas had always been on Mary's side. I had told him since the beginning of their marriage. Always side with your wife in a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflict. I've suffered a bit from mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflicts myself. I know how difficult marriage can be. Thomas understood my thoughts correctly, but this incident was not a matter to be taken lightly. It could have been life-threatening. Thomas had made his decision. Lies. Thomas would never leave me. "Susan, what did you say to him? You should have just died sooner." Mary yelled at me with enough energy to glare, but she still couldn't move on her own. The medication she used must have been potent. "Jennifer always sides with you, Susan. What an ungrateful daughter. Not helping her mother, despite everything I've told her. I should have never given birth to her." Mary's abusive words were too much for me. I didn't mind her speaking ill of me, but to curse her own blood-related daughter was unbelievable. Thankfully, Jennifer wasn't here. "So you don't think it's all your own fault? No intention of reflecting, huh? Don't you know the word repentance?" I despised Mary from the bottom of my heart. Mary writhed in frustration, still unable to move freely. She must have wanted to lunge at me. "Here's the lawyer's business card. Once you can move your hand, sign the divorce papers quickly and send them to the lawyer. If you don't agree, I'll go to the police and tell them everything. Even if it doesn't go to the police, I'll reveal everything in court, so be prepared." With those words, I left Mary's hospital room. As soon as I closed the hospital room door, "Crone!" I heard Mary's voice cursing me. To me, it sounded like sour grapes. A smile naturally came to my lips. I felt strangely refreshed. Afterward, Mary seemed to resign herself, signing the divorce papers and mailing them to the lawyer. Thomas immediately submitted them to the city hall. They were officially divorced and became strangers to each other. At that time, Mary was still hospitalized, and her parents had come from afar to visit her. When they heard about the divorce, they were furious and came to our house yelling. Thomas and I explained everything to Mary's incredulous parents and showed them the medical report. They seemed convinced after seeing the report and apologized deeply. They repeatedly said, "Thank you for handling this quietly." It made us almost feel embarrassed. There was not a single word of apology from Mary. However, Thomas's mobile phone, "I want to see you." She kept calling. Thomas continued to ignore her, saying, "I never want to see her face again." Jennifer's custody was granted to Thomas. Mary's hospitalization lasted longer than expected, and even after discharge, she still has some paralysis. She seems to be living at her parents' house for a while. Mary's parents' house is in Atlanta, and Mary, who returned home after the divorce, has become the talk of the neighborhood. Many people are inquisitive, and it didn't take long for the details of the divorce to spread. Known in the neighborhood as the harsh wife who tried and failed to poison her mother-in-law and was sent back to her parents' house, Mary has become somewhat of a celebrity. Her paralyzed condition seems to prove these rumors, and she apparently can't even go outside. She locks herself in her room, keeping the shutters closed, staying in the dark. She's still muttering curses about me. It's appalling that she hasn't yet realized that she brought the situation upon herself due to her own actions. My health improved rapidly after I stopped eating Mary's food. The medication prescribed by the doctor to counteract her poisoning must have worked. I believe the absence of stress also sped up my recovery. I was worried that Jennifer might be upset about her parents' divorce, but she became brighter and more active than before. She must have been a bit subdued when Mary was around. Seeing her return to her true self makes me happy. Next spring, David will be returning from France. Jennifer is eagerly waiting to see her grandfather, whom she hasn't seen in a long time. When David returns, our home will become even livelier. I want to quickly forget the unpleasant memories and live while imagining a fun future. Being able to watch Jennifer grow up is the greatest happiness for me.